Katie, and welcome back to my Booktube channel. Welcome to Bookmas Day 9. This video is all about my most disappointing books of 2021. And I did end up ranking these, so this video starts with the least most disappointing and works its way up to my number one most disappointing read of the entire year. Also, I'm not going to give summaries of any of these books. I might give little tidbits that'll help you understand why I didn't like them, but I'm not going to give a full summary because I honestly don't feel like it's worth the time. But on that note, just because these books disappointed me does not mean that I think they are not good books. I will explain my reasoning. Some of these just weren't for me, or it had a lot to do with my expectations going into the book. But let's just jump into it. So the first book is hands down by Mariana Zapata, and it hurts my soul to put a Mariana Zapata book on here, but I think I went into this book with just too high of expectations, and I'm used to these books being like really good slow burn romances, but this was like a friends to lovers instead of like enemies to lovers, and I don't know, it was like I really enjoyed their friendship, but I didn't see any romantic chemistry, so it made it really difficult to root for. And the main reason I could not root for it was because of the nicknames that he had for her. Because they were childhood best friends, his nicknames for her were Kiddo and Pee-wee. And even if there could have been tension between them, calling her Kiddo is not cute. Like, I don't ship that. That just feels so weird to me. So I just couldn't really get behind this book. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars because I did still enjoy like the friendship, and we also get to see some characters we met in some of her other books, so I really enjoyed that, but I don't know, it just wasn't a good romance to me personally. After that, I have The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and this is probably my most controversial book on this list, or at least like the top 2 controversial ones. I think it's just because this book was pitched to me, or this whole series was pitched as like an epic romance between Jude and Cardan. And so I'm expecting like some really great romance even in this book, and I'm all for enemies to lovers, even if they absolutely despise each other at the beginning. I love books like that, but I just couldn't get behind it. I didn't really see enough romance. This book was also like packed with political intrigue, and back when I read this, that wasn't something I enjoyed in books, so I did not have a good time, and I just kind of forced myself to read this, honestly. At the time, I did still rate this 4 stars because I think I just wanted to like it so much because everybody else was raving about it, but I would probably end up giving this like 3 stars now, personally. I did try to reread it in November, and I only made it 30 pages in before I put it down again because there were other books I would have rather read and spent my time reading. So I'm not sure if I will ever continue this series. I do have the other 2 books. So if you think I should continue this, please convince me down in the comments because I really want to like this series. I just didn't. I was very disappointed. After that, we have The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. And so many people love this book, but I was honestly bored through the whole thing. I don't know. I didn't care about the characters at all. This was another one I like forced myself to read. I honestly kind of wish that I DNF'd this when I had the chance. I found myself skimming a lot of this book. I only gave it 2 stars, and I had high hopes for it. It sounded really cute. It was about like this guy and a girl who shared this apartment, and one of them only needed it during the day because they worked during the night, and the other one worked during the day and only needed it at night, so it worked out. They never saw each other. They just communicated through little notes, so it sounded like it'd be so cute, but like I said, I was just bored. After that, I have Even If We Break by Marieke Nijkamp. Sorry if I'm not saying your name right. This is the only one on this list that I ended up DNFing. And this was a book that was gifted to me by a family member. I didn't really know anything about it, but it sounded really good. It seems like this really cool thriller. But you start reading it and it's honestly really confusing. So there's like 5 different main characters. You get pretty much all of their perspectives in here, I think, from what I remember. But also this involves like, yeah, you get a bunch of different perspectives. This involves like a game that's kind of like a dice game, I don't know, I thought it was going to be more like an escape room kind of vibe, but it's actually just kind of like this dice game that they play, and it was never really explained too well. And in this game, like while they're playing, they all have code names, and so you're trying to learn who they are in real life, but also in the game, and then you're also trying to learn this game you don't understand, and then weird things start happening. I was just really confused. I didn't understand anything that was going on, and so I decided to DNF it. I can't remember how many pages in I was, maybe 100, maybe a little less than that, but I couldn't find a reason to continue this book. The next one on this list is Master of One by Jada Jones and Danny Bennett. And this book, I think it was just because all the main elements of this book are things that I don't typically enjoy in books, so that's really my bad. I am not going to say this book is not good. It just honestly doesn't fit with the things I enjoy in books. So it's really just a personal preference, but I was disappointed because I had really high hopes for this. It sounded really, really cool. But this book basically is just one long quest, and I've learned that that's not something that I really like in books. This book also has a lot of different perspectives in it, so that left me kind of confused as well, but it was still easier to understand than the last book I talked about. And also, this was supposed to have a male-male romance in it, and it definitely did, but I was expecting there to be some build-up to it. Like, I thought it would just be a really good slow burn, but I feel like nothing really happened, and I didn't see any chemistry between them until, like, the very end, where they just kind of, like, end up together. And I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. I didn't really see any build-up, so that was just disappointing to me. Oh, I gave this book 2 stars, by the way. I did not say that. But this next book, I also gave 2 stars, and that is When Sparks Fly by Helena Hunting. And this one is very disappointing. I had read 2 other Helena Hunting books by the time I read this one. I loved both of them, so I was so excited to finally own one. And then, of course, this is the one I ended up disliking a lot. So basically, this book follows Avery. She gets in a car accident. Her best friend, Declan, who's also her roommate, decides to take care of her. And this is a friends to lovers. It sounds super cute. I enjoyed the first part of this story. I really liked them together. I loved their friendship. But I did not see a lot of chemistry between them. It really felt like they just got together because it was convenient and not because they really wanted to. Also, this book was just kind of filled with red flags and things that felt very toxic to me. I feel like Declan just really pissed me off by the end of this book. A lot of characters did, because everybody kept blaming Avery for things that were not her fault, and I felt like nobody was taking the responsibility they should have been taking, except for Avery, who didn't really have a good backbone, and people kept making her feel like it was her fault, so she kept taking on the blame. And I just wanted to give her a big hug, because a lot of characters pissed me off in this book. Literally every few pages I stopped and had to rant to my fiance because this book just made me angry. But I made myself finish it because I've loved Helena Hunting books in the past, and I own this one, so I wanted to at least say that I finished it. But it definitely deserved the 2-star rating that I gave it. The next book on this list is Witches Steeped in Gold by Sienna Smart, and this book was one of my most anticipated releases of the entire year, so you don't know how much it hurts me to have this far up the list. I did end up giving this book 3 stars because there were some elements I enjoyed, but honestly, I was just super confused throughout this entire book. It has like a lot of rich world building, but it's never explained enough to understand. The writing is just very confusing because it uses a ton of jargon and a ton of words that are unique to this specific world, but they never explain what they mean. So you're just forced to kind of figure it out for yourself. I feel like it would have been really helpful if there was a glossary in the back so we could look up what some of the words mean, or at least if they were explained a little bit better. I could not understand them. Also, on top of that, it used a ton of big words to like describe things that I had to look up because I didn't understand that either, but that's more of a personal problem. But basically, I didn't understand a lot of the terms that they were using in here. Also, it's told from 2 different perspectives of both of our female characters, but they honestly got really mixed up in my brain. They felt very similar to me. They both really were like, I don't want to say aggressive. They were very badass, but they both were filled with like a lot of like vengeful thoughts, and they wanted to do a lot of really intense things. I don't really know how to explain it. They just really felt the same to me, and I kept having to look back to the beginning of the chapter to see whose perspective I was reading, and I was just very confused. It's also really sad because I ended up getting this book from both of the subscription boxes that I got. So I have 2 copies of this book, and I did not even like it. At least it's a pretty cover, and the other one's even prettier, so I guess at least they look cute. The next book is another one that's probably controversial, and that is The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. I feel like this is probably their most popular book, or one of their most popular books, and it's pitched as an enemies to lovers, where it's like the maid of honor and the best man at a wedding, and everybody else at this wedding gets sick except for the 2 of them, and so they are forced to go on the honeymoon because it's already paid for. So even though they hate each other, they go on this honeymoon together, and that sounds like the perfect plot, and like, I don't know, just like the perfect setup for a great romance. But I don't know, I think the progression from enemies to lovers was just way too quick for me. I felt like they really didn't like each other, and there was great banter. I was really loving that element, but as soon as they switched from enemies to lovers, which happened really fast, it was like there was no banter anymore. I was kind of bored with their relationship. There was also a ton of secondhand embarrassment. Like, it made me feel so uncomfortable. I'm not somebody that handles secondhand embarrassment very well, so that could just be a personal issue. But I don't know, I really enjoy slow burn romances, and this one just did not hit as hard as it needed to, and I was just very disappointed because enemies to lovers is like one of my favorite romance tropes, and so I had high hopes for this one, and it did not really go over well for me. The next one is The Society by Ivy Smoke, and even if I wanted to give you a summary of this book, I couldn't because I still have no idea what happened. I was looking forward to this book so much. I had seen the author Ivy Smoke on like a bunch of social media platforms, and her book sounded really good. This one she claimed was her spiciest yet, and I really didn't think it was spicy at all. Maybe it's just because I had no idea what was happening the entire time. It's supposed to be about like this secret society kind of that fills like all your wildest dreams or wildest desires. And yeah, I don't really know what happened. I forced myself to keep reading because I thought it would get better, and I thought something would finally click and I would understand. But I wish that I DNF'd this book really early on when I first became really confused, because it's not worth it. I really don't recommend this book at all. I don't know what it's about, and I probably won't read another book by Ivy Smoke because of how confused I was. And also, if that's her spiciest yet and I don't feel like there's any spice, I probably am not interested in the other ones either. I feel like I keep getting more and more angry as this list goes on, but I am about to get real angry talking about this next book because my most disappointing book of the entire year is Spells Trouble by PC and Kristen Cast. I feel like I have probably ranted about this book a few times on this channel, and I also have a Goodreads review, which is basically just a rant, and my Goodreads is linked below if you want to check it out. But this book makes me angry. This is the first time I've taken it off of my shelf since I've read it, and I literally never want to look at it again. Like, it makes me that angry. I read this book in May, and I still get fired up about it. So this was another one of my most anticipated releases of the entire year. I was looking forward to it since sometime in 2020. So the fact that this came out in May and I was so excited to read it, and then it disappointed me this much, just hurts my soul. I was also really excited about it because I ended up going to a bookstore a few days before this was even supposed to be published. I wasn't even looking for this book, and it was already there. So I was able to buy it a few days before it was technically published. So I thought I was so cool getting it early, and then I ended up hating it. Like, I literally gave this book 1 star. Oh, I also gave The Society 1 star, in case you're wondering. I gave this book 1 star. If I could give it 0 stars, I would. I don't know why it irritates me so much, but let me try to explain why I didn't like it. First of all, the writing. I did not enjoy the writing at all. It feels very juvenile, but then it also includes like sexual innuendos. So it's like, I don't really know what their target audience is. The writing itself feels very like juvenile and like it's geared toward a younger audience. But then with all these sexual innuendos, it doesn't feel like younger kids should be reading this book. So I don't really know who they're trying to write this book for. It's very confusing. And also with the writing, it feels so like, I don't know, it's like they're trying to dumb things down for us. They just over-explained everything, and there's so much extra dialogue to try to over-explain things, and it was completely unnecessary. It made me angry because it made me feel like they thought I was dumb or something. It just frustrated me so much. I didn't really connect to any of the characters, but honestly, that was like the least of my problems. But the main thing I thought would save this book for me, even though I hated everything else, was the magic. I had such high hopes for the magic system in this book. It had such potential. It just seemed like it would be so good, and I literally hated it. It's like the most basic you could ever imagine. Like, they didn't even try with the spells, okay? Like, they were trying to make it rain in this book, and literally they chanted, "Make it rain" 3 times. Their spell was, "Make it rain, make it rain, make it rain." That was the whole spell. Like, you could at least go on Google Translate and type that in and put it in Latin or something, you know? Like, at least put in a tiny bit of effort. Like, that's just sad. I could write a better spell than that, and I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't write books. I can't write a book, but I could do better than that. And it just makes me so angry for some reason. I could go on and on about this book. I don't recommend this to anybody, even now, because there's going to be a sequel for this book coming out in 2022. Even seeing that cover makes me angry. And that book didn't do anything to me. It's not even out yet, but that makes me angry. So, literally, I have so much hatred for this book. I've never disliked a book more than I dislike this one. And I've read over 200 books, so I feel like that's saying something. And I honestly think it's funny how angry it makes me still to this day. Each time somebody asks me about it, I get like so fired up, and it's pretty funny. But this is my least favorite book of the entire year. If you've made it this far, please comment below what your least favorite book of the entire year is. I think it'd be really interesting, especially if it's a book that is really popular and everybody loves. Please don't be scared to leave your opinion, because same with like the Honeymooners, Cruel Prince, Spells Trouble, there's so many books on here that everybody loves that I disliked, and that is totally okay. But if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would genuinely really appreciate it. And if you do subscribe, please click the notification bell so you know when I upload next. Thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait to see you in my next video.